Welcome to the Hoosier Gridiron Report on IndianaHighSchoolSports.com and driven by Tom Wood Nissan. Tom Wood Nissan, just east of Keystone off 96th Street across from Wawa, is sponsoring tonight's episode. 0% financing going on right now at Tom Wood Nissan on all 2025 Rogues, Pathfinders, and Muranos, plus 1.9% financing on all 2025 Frontier Pro 4X models and 4.9% financing on 2025 Kicks and Sentra models. Visit Tom Wood Nissan on 96th Street or at tomwoodnissan.com. I am your host, Mitch Stevens, and we're excited to bring you episode 4 of the Hoosier Gridiron Report leading into week 3 of the 2025 season. This is the show that every week will bring you a game of the week recap from the previous Friday night, as well as conversations with coaches around the state each week. Tonight, we're recapping the battle of defending state champions, New Palestine and Decatur Central, which we covered on IndianaHighSchoolSports.com. So make sure each Friday night to check over on our website for the games that we are going to be live streaming. So Brad Huber was my partner for the broadcast. Brad had the play-by-play. I had the color commentary for the Dragons and the Hawks. And this upcoming week, we have Westfield and Zionsville. And we also have the game that I will be doing the play-by-play for, which will be Cecina at Beech Grove. So check IndianaHighSchoolSports.com for game recaps, for scores, and especially for live streams of games across the state. After we cover that recap of New Palestine and Decatur Central tonight, we'll go through a rundown of some scores from around the state. And in a few moments, we will be joined by Lawrence Central head coach Will Patterson. And Coach Patterson coming off of a very impressive win, 40-30 over Zionsville, and Westfield head coach Josh Miracle. Coach Miracle has been at the program for over 15 years now, but just his second season as the head coach for the Shamrocks. And in his first season as head coach, Coach Miracle led Westfield all the way to the state title game where they came up just short against Brownsburg, 22-17. But his team is back and poised to make another run at it here in the 2025 season. So for our recap for tonight, again, we covered New Palestine at Decatur Central. New Palestine won the 4A state championship last season. Decatur Central won the 5A state championship. So we were very excited to cover the game. The only unfortunate reality going into it is Decatur Central's starting quarterback, Bo Polston, injured his shoulder, his AC joint to be exact, in week 1. So he was in a sling and unable to start. And that certainly made things difficult for Kyle Enright and his staff to game plan for such a tough challenge in New Palestine. But the Dragons showed up ready to go. Both of these coaches, so Kyle Enright and Kyle Ralph for Decatur Central and for New Palestine, respectively, have had outstanding careers already with their schools. So for Coach Enright, he's in his 10th season, 81-29 record, and of course the aforementioned state championship victory in 2024. And for Coach Ralph, just an outstanding record, particularly in the regular season, but across the board. New Palestine picked up the victory 28-6 on Friday night over Decatur Central. That improved Kyle Ralph's overall record to 143 wins and 14 losses. He is in his 13th season. The team has lost 14 times. Just a spectacular program that they're running at New Pal, and it really showed up throughout the entire game. And right from the opening jump, we were thinking it was going to be tough for Decatur Central to keep the game close and really try to pull off an upset with not having their starting quarterback. And New Palestine wasted no time when they showed up at Decatur Central High School for the game. Caden Jacobia took the opening kickoff 90 yards back to the house, and it was really a shell-shocked crowd for Decatur Central right out of the gate. It was 7-0 before half the fans could even get in their seats. Now, the response from Decatur Central and the way that really the coaches and the players handled this entire first half, our entire crew was very impressed with. And it's a good sign for these guys moving forward. It's going to be obviously critical to get Bo Polston back. Polston is a senior. He led this team to the state title last year. He's a Division I football commit, so he'll be playing at Toledo next season. So he's just obviously a huge part to their team. But the rest of the Hawks really showed up with some fights, starting with their first offensive drive, right? So you come in without your starting quarterback and you get kind of smacked in the face right out of the gate with the opening kickoff being taken back to the house. Braylon Morris was the starting quarterback for Decatur Central, and Morris is a great athlete. He's a receiver and a defensive back, and he was really running kind of an option offense. He could throw the ball a little bit, but that was not really the game plan. And Decatur Central ran it right down the field on the opening drive, and they took a lot of time off the clock in the first quarter, and they cut the lead to 7-6. A missed extra point kept New Palestine in front. And then from there, that defense for the Dragons really stepped up and got stop after stop for this team. But it was just big plays for New Palestine. There weren't really any long drives, save for one in late in the second half when they scored their final touchdown. It was just massive plays. So when it was 7-6, they had a 70-yard passing touchdown to their tight end Mason Oglesby. So senior quarterback Jacob Davis hit him with a strike going right down the middle of the field. He ran it all the way in. And then ultimately the play of the game. It was 14-6 New Palestine. Decatur Central was backed up inside their own 1 yard line after Jacob Davis, the quarterback, punted and pinned them back there. So it was danger zone. Decatur Central marched all the way down the field at the end of the first half. They had it inside the 10-yard line with a couple of chances. Ultimately, they were stopped on a couple incomplete passes. 1 second remained on the clock, and that was when Decatur Central tried to kick a field goal from 26 yards out, and Cameron Rollison for New Palestine blocked the field goal, scooped it up, and took it 70 yards to the house. It was one of the wilder first halves of football that I've ever seen. The first half, I should say, started and ended with a special teams touchdown, and New Palestine was up 21-6 when they came out of the half. Coach Ralph's team was ready to go on the defensive side, and it was just really too tall of a task for Braylon Morris to come in as a receiver slash defensive back and, try to do the job that Bo Polston had done, as a natural quarterback. But they showed a lot of fight, especially the Hawks defense. They, kept giving the offense chances, but it just wasn't enough. Now, the other guy that played some quarterback for Decatur Central is Eli Hill, a sophomore, and who most people think is going to be next up, so to speak, when Polston graduates. He was in the game in the first half, and Brad and I continued to point out that really every time they brought him in, they were just running toss sweep plays. So they were bringing him in almost just to give Braylon Morris a little bit of a breather. In the second half, when the game was feeling a little more out of hand and Decatur Central really wasn't able to move the ball with Morris at the helm, they started to let Hill play a little bit more. He had a couple really nice passes, so some promising material on tape for Coach Enright and his staff to look at. I would imagine he'll likely get the ball moving forward for the Hawks. He's the future quarterback, showed some good signs late in the game. But for Coach Enright, it's really all about keeping the rest of his team growing, which I thought that they did. Even in a tough loss, I thought that the rest of the offense and the defense really showed a lot of fight. They have talent across the board, and just continue improving until starter Bo Polston can hopefully make a return leading into the playoffs. Now for New Pal, again, it was big play after big play. It was stout defense. It was a team and a program that is used to winning, and they showed it time and time again with huge plays that they made. And for New Palestine, that's likely the toughest test that they'll have of the regular season. Coach Kyle Ralph, we mentioned his incredible record overall. He is looking for his 10th undefeated regular season in 13 years. Just incredible. And for the Dragons, they may be on a collision course with Cathedral in 5A. That's what a lot of people think heading into the game, although the Cathedral did have a tough loss, which we'll cover here in the scores in just a moment. So again, from IndianaHighSchoolSports.com's live stream on last Friday night, it was New Palestine winning over Decatur Central in the battle of defending state champions 28-6. And we'll look forward to following both of those schools for the rest of the season. And of course, wish quarterback Bo Polston a quick recovery and hope he can get back on the field for the Hawks as soon as possible. Now, looking at some scores from around the league, we'll first start with Lawrence Central and Westfield, our coaches that will be letting into the show here in just a moment. And we'll go down the list of some of the other quote unquote big games. There's too much action going around for me to rattle off scores at you for 10 minutes, but some of the notable ones we'll try to cover each week. So Westfield, unfortunately, had a tough loss at Carmel, unfortunately for Coach Miracle, who we'll talk to in just a moment, 34-10. They did have that game at 20-10 after a big interception and a touchdown, but Carmel was ultimately too much. Westfield ended up throwing an interception in the end zone on a drive that could have continued to give them life, pretty much sealed it. They only lost once in the regular season last year, and it was 17-13 to the ultimate state champion Brownsburg. That was the team that beat them in the state championship. So we'll talk to Coach Miracle a little bit about the messages that he's sharing with his team going into week 3, because it was a tough loss, but it's so early in the season. Now, on the other side, Lawrence Central, big win, as mentioned, 40-30 over Zionsville. They were down 14-0 in that game, came back and won. They showed a lot of resiliency, made some big plays on the defensive side of the ball with a sack fumble recovery by Freddie Shaw, as well as an 80-yard pick six from DJ Summers. And their quarterback, Santana Allen, was making great throws all over the field. Again, congrats to Coach Pat. We'll talk to him in just a moment. Some other notable scores. So we had the showdown in week 1 between Ben Davis and Cathedral. That game ended with Cathedral winning 8-0 in a defensive battle, really, of course, from start to finish. Coach Peebles, who we had on the first episode of this show, he later called that game an old school football game. Well, unfortunately for Ben Davis and Cathedral, week 2 was a little bit tougher. Avon is now 2-0. The Orioles have 2 straight good wins with an OT victory over Decatur Central, and then they knocked off Ben Davis 35-14. Brownsburg took care of Cathedral handily 29-0. Now keep in mind for Cathedral, they're in 5A, Brownsburg is in 6A. And from the size of the school, Cathedral is typically more within the 4A, but they go up and down with the success factor. So I'm sure that Coach Peebles and his team learned a lot from that loss. We had Beech Grove over Jennings County 44-0. We will cover Cecina and Beech Grove again on IndianaHighSchoolSports.com next Friday night. So tune in for that. 2 friends of the website, Coach Rashawn Mosley with Beech Grove, now 2-0, and Coach Dan Harris with Cecina, also 2-0. Cecina 52-50 over Heritage Christian in an absolute shootout. A couple other scores from around the league, and we'll let our coaches on here in just a moment. Fishers improved to 1-1. The 31-28 victory for Fishers over Lawrence North. Franklin Central knocked off Roncalli 22-15. HSE over North Central 31-7. Hobart got a victory over Portage 52-21. Hobart is where head coach Josh Miracle, who we'll talk to in just a moment, graduated from. So we wanted to give a shout out there. Chittard over Hanover Central 49-7. And Lafayette Central Catholic knocked off Coach LeVar Johnson's Cardinal Ritter squad 14-0. So those are the scores in the recap. Again, on the Hoosier Gridiron Report, driven by Tom Wood Nissan. Now we will let our guys in and get this thing started with Coach Patterson and Coach Miracle. Coach Miracle, Coach Patterson, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining tonight.
Thanks. Appreciate you having us.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. We just went through a recap of some of the games, and thank you guys, especially on this Labor Day weekend, for making time in your busy schedule to chat. We'll definitely be a fun one here tonight. We're going to start with looking at Friday night. So this past Friday night's matchup, and Coach Miracle, we'll start with you. So your team started the season with a great win, and then you go into a raucous environment, a tough game for sure against a really good Carmel team. I want to hear a little bit about, some of the messages to your guys going into week 3, because it was a tough loss, but it's so early in the season.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say first, just, congratulations to them. I mean, Coach Wright and their staff, and they did a, phenomenal job this last week. And, you're reminded that it's only, week 2 that you're in that environment. So hopefully we have a phrase in our program, sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. And I feel like you can definitely gain a ton of wealth of knowledge sometimes in those losses. Nobody likes to endure those, but certainly maybe you pay closer attention to some details that winning sometimes tends to hide. So all in all, we didn't really get off to the start we wanted. Win played a little bit of a factor and got pinned deep, and I thought our defense had some good resiliency early to just kind of hold, and just couldn't quite get it going offensively, which is byproduct too that they're so good on defense and what they were willing to give up. But I felt like, going into half, we were down 20-0 and our guys could have easily packed it in. Really was happy with how they came back out and fought. So it was a 20-10 game, and we're going in there. Unfortunately, had a penalty we'd like to have back, and then they made a great play. We didn't quite execute and threw a pick in the end zone. So what could have been 20-17, going into the fourth with a fun game. We ended up, making some mistakes there, and then ultimately, we had to gamble a little bit there late, and they got the best of us there at the end.
Yeah, absolutely. I was, watching some of those highlights going through the recap. I think to the average Indiana high school sports fan, if they're just checking out the scores, they look and they see the final score, right? And it might, oh, they just handled them. But yeah, after that interception from your defense and then a score to make it, 20-10, you were right there. So there's a lot of positives to build on. Now, the schedule doesn't get any easier. You turn around and you guys have to get ready for a really tough Zionsville team that Coach Patterson's team just played. So, from the film you've seen so far, what does Coach Turnquist's team do particularly well?
Yeah, I mean, familiar with, Coach Turnquist, a great program there. He does a phenomenal job leading them. And, Coach Patterson, you as well. I mean, fun getting to watch, film on them. And we got to play them a few years back, and just have a ton of respect for Coach Patterson and what he does there at LC. So we'll have our work cut out for us with Zionsville. I mean, they look great in the scrimmage, and then seeing them both versus Pike and LC, certainly, pretty good explosive players, on their offense. Their running back, he's an outstanding player, 3-year player in our conference. So ton of respect on that. And I think their defense, they play just really hard up front, like their front in particular, that they're going to, battle you from start to finish. So we'll have our hands full, certainly, but look to have a chance to rebound this week.
Yeah, it should be a great game. We'll actually be live streaming that one on IndianaHighSchoolSports.com. I won't have the call personally on that game, but I know our group is excited for that. Now, Coach Patterson, for you, I have to ask a little bit about this game just because Coach Miracle brought it up. He mentioned you guys played a couple of years ago, 59-58 in overtime. What was that game like?
Uh, it was stressful. Like Coach said, man, kudos to them. Likewise, they do a phenomenal job there at Westfield. I guess when you think of a successful high school program and how to model it and what it should be, Westfield is always a program that's in the conversation. So that's tremendous hats off to them and the work that they do. And just building their kids and their program and their community. It's been fun to watch. So, Coach, same to you guys, man. Y'all do a great job of getting it done. That game was it was interesting. We go back and it's a couple calls. It goes different ways for us. I mean, it could be not as close as it was, but at the end of the game, we said we had a chance to win, and we had some key players in positions to make plays, and we didn't. So it was a huge teacher for us to obviously continue to battle all the way to the end, and obviously just a lesson learned in a lot of areas of the game. So it was good for us um, to be in that position and learn from it. But when we played up there, I think the year before, I mean, it was a kind of a back and forth game as well. So it's always been fun when we play Westfield.
Yeah, and you talk about that resiliency and, regardless of what's happening in the game, continuing to battle. Your guys definitely did that on Friday night. Again, with looking at the score at the end, they won by 10, great win. That game started with your team down 14 to nothing. So what impressed you most about your guys from how they played on Friday?
Just how they responded. I said it was games like the Westfield game. Years before, a lot of our guys that played, they were around for that game. They got to see um, probably some of our older teammates that maybe have gone on, graduated, how they handled that situation, good or bad, and was able to learn from it. But for us, I was proud to see us respond, and not give up. Historically, we had to overcome that. That wasn't a quality that was a part of our program when I took it over. So, just to see our kids stick it out and fight it out, and to know that we on them about how they practice and how they prep. And that game looked how we prepped that week. Our kids were had a slow start to the week. I think it was an emotional week coming off the Lawrence North game, so we had a little bit of a hangover coming off of that. So we had to work through, and early in the week, and probably it involved some conditioning during practice. But they responded. They did well to finish out the week, and just it was just another lesson on how to prep, because if you don't prepare right way, then those could be the outcomes.
Yeah, I'd imagine it was a little bit of a combination to your guys this weekend after the game of, hey, way to fight, but I told you so. Let's show up ready to
Yeah,
go for practice and try to. You can't, even if it's a great week of practice, sometimes you just fall in a hole, right? But when you see that kind of the sluggishness from them, and then it shows up as 14 nothing, you hope they can build off that too and have a different mindset from the jump, right?
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So, uh, for you guys playing Zionsville last year on the way to the title, for Coach Miracle, you guys win that game, end up in the state championship. I know the Zionsville team and Coach Turnquist, their staff didn't forget that. Is there anything to be said for kind of being the hunted versus more of, last year you're in your first year as head coach, maybe surprise some people that you made the run that you did, and so is there anything for that? Is that more just something that fans grab a hold of and kind of make it a storyline?
I think, every week in our conference, I mean, there's no weeks off, and I think there's the utmost respect for every team that you go up against. So I think, in some ways it almost feels like you're one of the hunted no matter who you're facing, right?
Yeah.
And I certainly would say we have a ton of respect for their program. And, you know, um, every year is a little bit different too. Every group of kids, I think that's what's fun in the coaching world too, is, you can't just rest on what you did last year, have the exact same systems, same things in place. You kind of at the core of who you are, those things don't change, but how you get there maybe looks a little bit different each year. So I think that's the exciting part too, is maybe we're in a little different place than what we were heading in last year. But I think it's a great opportunity for us to grow. And I'm sure, yeah, they haven't forgot either, but Scott's pretty in the moment, and I think both of us, looking forward just to challenge come Friday.
Yeah, talking about last year, you had a massive group of seniors. So a lot of guys that need to step into those roles. What would you say that group of seniors left behind for this group that is helping them in whether it's their preparation, how they approach week to week, or just their confidence overall?
Yeah, I think they did a great job of leaving things better than they found it. That's what we're always kind of hanging our hat on, and just that family, and commitment atmosphere. And it was just even, you don't like losing obviously on a Friday night, but seeing a few of those guys that were just back because they were, maybe given a Friday night off before they're playing, games the next day. Just getting to see those guys and being reminded that, hey, it's bigger than just football. It's more about building, these guys into men and who they're going to become long after they leave us. And I think that's the part that keeps things in perspective a little bit too. Again, as much as we're all competitors and we want to win those things, I felt like they left things at a place where, even some in the youth are asking, hey, can we get a senior mentor like we had last year? Because this guy really impacted so and so's life. I mean, to me, that's a big win, and that senior class was really good about setting the table for these guys.
Yeah, talk a little more about what that senior mentor program looks like and kind of how you guys set it up.
Yeah, I think we, have some things that just happen organically, where maybe at the youth level, we have a couple kids right now that, family circumstances may be struggling, and it's great for us to just pair them up with some of our guys for a little extra support. We try to also get our freshmen with a senior or a junior, just as they come in our program. We want them to understand, hey, it's a privilege to be a Rock and what that looks like, but also, probably back when we played, the freshmen maybe, they got their fair share at times of just, making sure you knew where you were on the pecking order. And I think here we've tried to reverse that where, the seniors can help serve them, and, they're all going to be a part of this at one point. And we want to make sure that, we get them started on the right track. So they usually get with them even when they're in eighth grade and bring them over to lift and start getting in the fold.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, for that freshman or even, if the sophomore on JV being a practice player, there's an element of kind of the toughness you can build with those guys, but it's nice to not be a punching bag and that's it, right? At every practice. So
Sure.
yeah. Now, Coach Patterson, for this week, you guys are playing Edwardsville out of Illinois. Anything different in your preparation playing a team that's from out of state versus someone that you're really familiar with and you see that school year over year?
Not a ton. I mean, obviously it's a little harder to prep as a coach because you probably don't have as much access to tape to break down. They don't really know us. We don't really know them just from either just being an Indiana team or just somebody that we're familiar with. So, Coach there does a great job. I think last year until we played them at home, that was the first home opener they'd ever lost since like 2019 or something crazy like that. So I know they were pretty upset that we lost that game, and I'm not sure what they were told about our program or why they tried to schedule us, but it is what it is. So they do a great job. He's got a great history there in their program. They got a lot of phenomenal players. They got some good players this year that we're gonna have to game plan for on both sides of the ball. So other than that, I mean, it's no different in an approach. We scout report. There's a plan. It's we follow the same model that we follow every week to prep to get ready. So they're just another team that is in the way of our success, and we got to go get it.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I heard this correctly, but this might have been the message to your guys for some motivation. They had this home winning streak to start the year, so they thought they were scheduling a team they could just kind of roll on over. I'm just kidding.
Uh,
It
yeah.
just seemed
Well,
like you hinted at that a little bit.
I think I'm not sure where coach got his info from. I think their athletic director was pretty upset because they thought they were, I don't know, scheduling the cupcake team or something. And was like, hey man, it's Indiana football playing the MIC. Obviously one of the top conferences in our state. And it's like Coach said, man, it's not an off week in the mid conference. So every week it's a dogfight, no matter who you play. If you don't show up ready to play, you'll get beat. So that to be able to play a team from out of state and have some talent and take that same mentality that we take to every week. They I'm sure they didn't expect that. So uh, good for us to go all the way over there and execute. It was a heck of a day. I'm not sure that I will be able to do that as a head coach every week. Just planning the logistics and the food, the schedule, and it took tremendous support to my shout out to my parents because they took care of us from start to finish to make sure that we had everything that we needed every step of the way. So it was a good experience, but we're tired when we got back. We turned back around and played JV at 9 a.m., 9:30, whatever it was, and we got the kids off the road at 4 or 5. So it was tough.
Wow. Yeah, that's a long weekend. And I take it that coach, when he was looking into you guys, he didn't check out your Twitter bio, would be my guess. Otherwise, he would have been put on notice. So I have Coach Miracle. So to catch you up, I can't help myself but to bring this up each time now that I talk to Coach Patterson. And on his, I guess, X bio, his pronouns are savage/dog, which I got a real kick out of. I want to ask you on more a little more of a serious note, just having fun with it. Maybe two or three guys so far that you feel like are emulating that type of mentality and toughness and really standing out for your guys.
Yeah, it's probably a couple guys, a few guys I can name in our program that's doing that. But just some context to the bio. I just had an assistant that I worked with a long time ago. His name is Kurt Freitag. And another one named Marcus Watts. We embraced this mentality for our kids, and our kids bought into it, and they were like trying to do everything to, I guess, be in this clique or whatever that we created. And it was just a mentality of just always being a dog, no matter what, in the classroom, off the field, obviously on the field, just getting things done and to an elite level. And those guys, man, we had T-shirts, we had all this stuff, man. Everybody, the school was trying to buy them, the parents were trying to buy them, and the kids that didn't get them, their parents were upset because their son didn't earn it. But I would say the guys that are kind of emulating that right now is our quarterback, Santana Allen. We He got a new nickname called Ice Cold, man. He's obviously he was with us as a freshman. He transferred, came back to us in the winter of this past school year, and has been training his tail off. He's done a phenomenal job of just leading everybody and being a quarterback. Those guys love him. They want to play for him. And he's just everything that you want in your locker room out of a quarterback. He was making my job extremely easy from that standpoint. Just the calm, the cool, collected under pressure off the field. It just bled onto the field. He's just doing any and everything that I don't even know that I even really expect him to play to the level that he is right now. But he's only getting better. There's still a lot of meat left on the bones when we get out of games, and he knows that. So he's like, Coach, I got to do, regardless of how well I perform and do all that stuff, I got to be better. We got to be better here. Or he's challenging guys. He's holding them accountable. He's just that competitive courage that we look for out of our kids. He's done it. He's doing it to a T right now. So. Um, he's definitely one. Obviously, James Williams is our offensive tackle that committed to Purdue. He's I don't think I've had a kid make my job easier than James. Just in terms of how you do stuff on and off the field. He's I think in the top 40 or so academically in his class. And he just in terms of being a pro on and off the field, man. He's James is one of those kids that could play for a long time if he plays his cards right. So um, I would say him. Defensively, Elijah Woodfork is he's stepping into that realm of, I guess, being a dog, if you will. He's probably our best defensive player right now, just from a consistency level. Um, we put him on Lawrence North's 6'5" kids got 30 offers or whatever, and I think the kid probably had 2 catches on him. He didn't really catch a big ball until Elijah got hurt and got taken out there towards the end of the game. So, um, but kudos to him. Those guys, man, that their off season has been crazy. They've been bought into a lot of stuff that we put our kids through in the off season and leading it. And it's showing up when they play right now.
Yeah, that's awesome. And it's great to hear it's your best players a lot of times naturally are put into that spot of, oh, you're supposed to be the leader. But when you have a lot of talent and those guys are also displaying, like you said, what you want to see off the field, the toughness on the field, there's that constant, looking to improve no matter how well they played. That's a great sign, especially this early in the season.
Yep.
Now, Coach Miracle, in a similar vein, I get for both of you guys, you're so passionate, you spend so much time with these guys. If I ask you to name a couple kids that you're proud of, basically, it's kind of tough, right? You want to go through the whole roster. But Coach Miracle, I heard in a previous conversation you talking about the acronym Miracle that you have for your family. Wanted to kind of have you expand a little more on that because I thought it was really cool, and maybe one letter that you're focused on, one value with your family, and then also with the team.
Yeah, I think it's been, good for our family. We just took our name and put some family values to it, so like M for make memories. I mean, I think that's when you're in season, you try to keep that as a priority. And, for our family, it's not just my gig. I mean, it's our family. It's our ministry where we get to, hopefully make an impact on these guys and, our trainers and managers and everybody alike. So definitely, the make memory part is always, fun. I would say currently, this is probably more just being transparent. I mean, Coach Patterson understands that too. Time is at a premium, so I intentionally invest our time, talent, and treasures. And I think it looks different, different parts of the season, So right now, we're not necessarily in the, hey, there's a lot of quantity of time together as a family. It's more the quality. So like when I am here, I try to really make it a priority to be dad and, still have those interactions with our guys. And my wife does a phenomenal job of bringing our boys to practice. And, we get the coaches' families just hanging out together. And we want our players to see that. It's one thing for us to talk about family, but it's probably another thing for them to see it in action and show them that, hey, this is going to be you one day. And hopefully, you can make an impact, as a husband, as a dad, and everything in between. So yeah, it's been good for us. Certainly, we'd love to say we nail it all the time and get those things right, but we don't. That's why we come back to the acronym, and hopefully it allows us to get a little bit more grounded and back to what we need to focus in on.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. I was curious with, the supporting staff that you have. So you were, you've been at Westfield for a long time. You earned the, top assistant of the year award in one of your final years as an assistant coach. Talk about your assistant coaching staff and how maybe they help out in terms of taking things off of your plate or what they do to just, make the preparation easier for you on a week-to-week basis.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, they weren't just hiring me, they were hiring our staff, and I think that the first part is just, again, giving credit back to Jake for all the investment he's made in me and for everybody else on staff here, and just the thankfulness that I have for the loyalty of our staff to really stay and, just continue the mission that, Jake had put before us so many years, just as we were getting started out. Right. So it's always been great experience, full potential. And we've tried to center everything around family and out working and out loving. And I think that, right now we have over 20, assistants, but I think everybody's really a head coach for their position and for every role that they have. Certainly we wouldn't be able to do it without each other. I think that those guys, they don't get nearly enough credit, and they just consistently show up day in and day out and make an impact on those guys. And, even some of the hard conversations that maybe come up, it's always, I guess just good for me to see as a head coach that who's the first, person that usually a player wants to talk to, their position coach, that assistant that they have good rapport with. And, we have over 200 kids on our roster, and managers. So for us to have an academic coach, a manager coach, and best strength coach around, I mean, they all together, just building these kids in different ways.
Yeah. And you said that, they often don't get enough credit. And, I think that's just the nature of sports, right? Especially football. It's like head coach and quarterback are at the top of the list. And a lot of times there's few other guys that get credit in a program in general. Would you say with how long you were committed as an assistant coach, it makes it a little easier to kind of remind yourself to be intentional about recognizing those guys or letting them know how important they are?
Yeah, I hope I, do a good job of it. Hope they would say that, because they are, the utmost importance. I mean, you're not just working with, assistant coaches or colleagues. I mean, you're working with some of your best friends. So I think that sometimes can make it challenging, right? When you have to have a level of transparency and accountability and realness with each other. And I think we're able to do that. And once things, leave the room, I mean, we're all on board and we support each other in the missions, because I think that's what you need to do for the kids, right? And I just am so thankful for them. And that makes it fun where you can show up and you're not just showing up to a job or work, but you're showing up to, something you feel like you're called for. And just that you can do it together with some of your best friends, again, is a grateful heart of mine, I think, just to recognize those guys.
Yeah, that's great to hear. Now, Coach Patterson, you talked about one of your guys being committed to Purdue. Obviously, you were an outstanding player in your own right. I know both of you guys played in college, but for you, Coach Patterson, playing at Lawrence North, Defensive Player of the Year, on to play at IU, even had some time with the Houston Texans. I'm sure that a lot of your guys look up to you in that way. Is there any specific coaching or advice that you give to some of these guys that they have college, playing at the next level as their number one goal?
Yeah, we talk a lot about the process of what it takes to get there. I know the tough part about it is everybody is so end goal oriented that they don't love what it takes to get to that level. Obviously the that landscape has changed tremendously in high school football for our kids, and it's no at no fault to theirs, unfortunately. And not enough of our kids are seen or trying to be seen because of the circumstance that they've been put in by the college world. So we just teach them what to do to put themselves out there and what it really takes to play at that level. A lot of what it takes, we can't help them with. That's something that God says God's given. It usually starts with size, passing the eye test. But at the end of the day, we just try to get them to understand that football is just a vehicle, and it's something you can use to pay for education. So if you can do it really well, you can get it done at any level. Again, we just don't decide what level it is to help them do that. But from the grades to your character, obviously all the metrics to play into what they consider a good football player. We make sure they know. We actually created some profiles for our kids by position, just kind of what college coaches look for, and it's kind of what to model yourself after. Is you know if you're no discouragement to anybody that may see this or see the show, but if you're 5'5" and you run a 4.9, you're probably not going to play at Alabama. Because they're just not the player that they're looking for.
Right.
So you have to just understand that and understand how to adjust your goals and know that you can still be successful. There is a place for you. It's just probably not Alabama or any of the high level Division I programs. So that for us that's important to make sure our kids understand the vehicle and the process of how to get there. And um, it's something we harp on.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's so much value with the role that both of you guys are in and just being real and transparent with kids, especially, they're 14, 15, 16 years old. I'm a proponent of dreaming big and setting your goals high, but it can also be, a negatively life-changing experience if somebody has just an unrealistic expectation of what could happen, right? And then they're crushed by that, when there could be someone like yourselves and they're giving them guidance along the way so that, there's nothing wrong with not being, the guys like you said that played, receiver at Alabama. That's 1% of the 1%. So keeping that in perspective, I think is great too. I know we are heading towards wrapping up. Couple final questions. Again, thank you guys so much for the time here tonight. Coach Miracle, I'll start with you on this. Always like to ask each coach kind of a general message for the parents. Their son is going through your program and some things that you hope to instill and maybe noticeable changes that if everything goes well, they're going to see these differences from being a part of your program.
Yeah, I think great question. I'm always thankful when parents give us the opportunity because you don't take it lightly. At some point, we're spending probably more time with them at this age than maybe even they are, as much as we're requiring at least in season for them. And I think, we've always said our mission is great experience, full potential. And our goal is to really, meet every kid where they're at. And that full potential is going to look different, right? Coach Patterson just said, I mean, you may have somebody who's Division 1, high end player, and you may have somebody who, it's like me in college where, you're hanging your hat on the scout team and you're trying your best to contribute to the team. And wherever they're at, you want to, just push them to their greatest potential. And ultimately we're going to do that, not just on the field, but academically and behaviorally. And, we hope that our program goals, resonate with them. We talk a lot about fun. I mean, I think there has to be that. Billy, I just talked about making memories, even as a family. Like we want them to, enjoy the process of things. We talk about commitment to excellence, how they do things and the way in which they do them is really important. Victory with honor. Sure, we all want to win, but I think there's the right way to do that. I think you can have class with it. And sometimes that can be difficult when you have success. How do you really handle that? I think, for us to make a difference part, we put a high premium on serving others, so we're constantly, trying to do things. I mean, just last couple of weeks, somebody reaching out, just, hey, can you help with some tear down and setups? And it's really, a night that it's going to be a year anniversary of, their son passing away. And, kid was in our youth league and, your heart goes out to him, but we want to be, people that others can count on when they really need it at that moment. And hopefully, our kids come through there and, we say outwork, out love. I hope that's something that they can do, when they leave us and when they're out on their own. And that we're just a phone call away, that we want to partner with parents. I think it's easy sometimes to get this like, hey, we're coach versus parent instead of like, hey, we're in this together and we all want this outcome of son or daughter for some of our managers here to just, reach their absolute best version of themselves. And I'm just, again, grateful when, parents give us that opportunity, just to impact and partner together.
Yeah, that's awesome. And Coach Patterson, I'll let you share some thoughts on this too. This has happened every time I ask this question. The first person that gets to go, I feel like, oh man, that was great. And now he might have stolen a lot of things that you would say about your guys, but just some thoughts for parents of the Lawrence Central program.
Yeah, definitely. I would attribute that to just the stuff that it takes to run an elite level high school program. I think we all probably model ourselves after each other in one way or another. Just just being transparent, the clientele that we all serve is different. It's the kids that come from are in more affluent situations. It's stuff that's different versus the kids that are, maybe in our close to our inner city, just demographic. Like we all try to create a model that they all can follow and be successful from. For us is we start with just elite development that's on and off the field, just getting our players to maximize their potential on the field and off, and really just creating just a mindset of no matter what situation you're in, because we'll we got a lot of, just in our community is we have kids that live on the water in Geist. And we'll have some kids that are, right in the inner city that, that just can barely do for themselves. So, in all spectrums or whatever walk of life, we try to make sure they understand the development to be able to, find success. Another thing that are, we pride ourselves on is just being college and career ready, whether it's going to be football or using football when we're done, when they're done with us at LC. It 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 creates the habits that they need to be successful. It's just even going into the workforce or just the habits of being a successful man, a successful father, a husband, a brother, friend, whatever it is, whatever walk of life that they leave us in. Uh, we want to make sure that they are ready to go. And a lot of the intangibles that we teach in football, just on our daily, are things that they need to have that success. Just our brotherhood and leadership is another thing that we pride ourselves on. Just building that lifetime camaraderie of knowing you have somebody else to count on, knowing somebody that put a helmet and a chin strap on just like you did. You went out there and fought it out together. That's something that I still talk to my high school teammates and college teammates, and we're one and alike in a lot of situations because you paid the price with those guys from summer running to meeting coaches' expectations in the classroom. We all fought it out together, and then just having a championship mentality, and a lot of that is built around how we set our culture up. And just obviously for us, at LC, it's been a uphill battle. And from when I've taken the program over, it wasn't great. And now to just kind of be building and rebuilding and trying to establish, what it takes to win and getting everybody to understand what it takes to win. That's something that it's been a little bit of a challenge, but the parents and our kids have began to buy into it, and we're starting to see the results. So I would say those four things is kind of created our brand of what it looks like to be an LC football player.
That's great. Well, thank you guys both again for joining tonight. Coach Patterson from Lawrence Central, Coach Miracle from Westfield. We will be following along. I'm sure we'll have live streams of a lot of your guys' games throughout the season, and we'll be rooting you on and wish you the best of luck throughout the rest of 2025.
Thanks. Appreciate you
Thanks
having
for
us
having
on.
Yep, absolutely. So again, a big thanks to Coach Will Patterson from Lawrence Central and Josh Miracle from Westfield High School. We are going to wrap up here on the Hoosier Gridiron Report, episode 4. But first, a couple of updates for what we have on the horizon. So for IndianaHighSchoolSports.com, I mentioned throughout the episode that we have live streams of games throughout the state, typically a couple games per week. So next week we will have Indianapolis Cecina at Beech Grove. I will be on the play-by-play for that game, of course, Friday night at 7 p.m. And we also will be covering a big rivalry matchup on IndianaHighSchoolSports.com between Josh Miracle's Westfield Shamrocks and Scott Turnquist, previous guest, Zionsville Eagles. So that should be a great game. Those are the two streams on IndianaHighSchoolSports.com next week. Typically, we will have Sunday night episodes as we've had for each of the first 4. Next week, a little bit of a different schedule. We are going to be live on Saturday night instead. So Saturday, September 6th, just for this week from 7 to 8 p.m., then back to Sundays from there. Once again, thank you for tuning in to the Hoosier Gridiron Report, driven by Tom Wood Nissan. Looking forward to another great Friday night coming up in Indiana High School